If you're about to hire a divorce attorney, watch this video first. The average divorce attorney bills between $250 and $400 per hour. By the time your case is done, you could easily spend $15,000 to $30,000 or even more. But in most cases, you don't have to. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to handle your divorce without one. Now, before we get into the steps, let me be clear about who this applies to and who it doesn't. If your divorce is uncontested, meaning you and your spouse can come to an agreement on the major issues like property division, child custody, and child support, you almost certainly don't need an attorney. The majority of divorces fall into this category. If your divorce is highly contested, if there are significant assets at stake, allegations of domestic violence, or one spouse is absolutely determined to fight everything in court, then you may need to hire legal help at some point. And I'll point out where that line is as we go. But here's what I tell most of my clients. Even if your divorce starts out contested, the goal should always be to negotiate a settlement outside of court. Because once you're in front of a judge, both sides lose control of the outcome. And both sides pay through the nose to get there. The men I work with typically settle their divorces in a matter of weeks, for a few $100s. Many do it without lawyers on either side. And it starts with understanding the actual process. Now, a lot of men are intimidated by the divorce process because they don't understand it. So let's break it down into plain language. There are 4 phases to any divorce. Phase 1 is the filing phase. One spouse files a petition for divorce at the local county courthouse. That spouse is called the petitioner. If your spouse has already filed, if you've already been served papers, you have passed phase 1. The ball is already in play. Phase 2 is the response phase. Once divorce papers are filed, you have a limited amount of time to respond. In most states, that window is around 20 days. This is critical. If you don't respond, a default judgment can be entered against you, which means your spouse could potentially get everything she asked for without your input. Don't let that happen. Phase 3 is the negotiation phase. This is where most of the real work happens and where you can save the most money. If both parties reach an agreement on property, custody, support, and alimony, you can file a settlement agreement with the court and avoid a trial entirely. Now, phase 4 is finalization. The judge signs off on your settlement. Your divorce is done. Here's the thing that most men don't realize. Court is not a foregone conclusion in any divorce. The vast majority of couples settle outside of court. Your goal is to make sure that you're one of them. Statistically, only about 2% of divorces are settled by a judge after a trial. Now let's talk about the paperwork. Because one of the biggest reasons men think they need an attorney is the forms. They look complicated. They use legal language, and nobody tells you which ones you actually need. Here's the reality. Family court is procedural. Every state has its own forms, but almost every state makes those forms available for free online. A quick Google search for how to respond to a divorce in your state will take you directly to your state's official court website where you can find everything you need. Let me give you a couple of examples. In Florida, if you have minor children, you'll be looking for the Dissolution of Marriage with Minor Children response form. That's form 12.30C1. You can fill it out directly on your computer or even an iPad. Most of the information you need is already on the papers you were served. The case number, the petitioner's name, your county. The rest is basic information about your children and your circumstances. California, for example, uses a similar process. Their response form is called the FL-120. It's 3 pages long. Most men can complete it in less than an hour. The key things to remember: follow the instructions carefully, include all the required information, and file within your state's deadline. Once your form is complete, you file it at your county courthouse and have a copy served upon your spouse. The rules for service vary by state, so check your local court's guidelines. Now, if you're unsure which forms apply to your specific situation, that's a good place to get some targeted help. Not from a full-service attorney at $400 an hour, but somebody who knows the process and can point you in the right direction quickly. I help my clients do this for much less than the cost of an attorney. Click on the link below to see how I can help you. Now, let's talk about the negotiation phase, because this is where most men either protect their rights and their assets or lose them. Once your response is filed, the focus shifts to reaching a settlement agreement. This agreement will cover 4 areas: property division or division of net worth, child custody, child support, and alimony. Now here's what you need to understand about negotiation. The goal is not to win. The goal is to reach a fair agreement quickly with minimal cost and conflict. Every week your divorce drags on is another week of stress and another opportunity for the cost to pile up on both sides. First, know your numbers before you negotiate. Understand exactly what the marital assets and debts are worth. The home, retirement accounts, the vehicles, the debts. You can't negotiate a fair split if you don't know what you're splitting. Second, don't negotiate from emotion. This is the most expensive mistake men make. When emotions drive decisions, reasonable settlements fall apart, and both parties end up in court spending money neither of them has. Third, understand what a court would likely award and use that as your anchor. Most states follow equitable distribution, which generally means a roughly equal split of marital net worth. Child support is calculated by a formula based on income and custody time. Alimony depends on the income difference between spouses and the length of the marriage. The bigger the difference, the higher the alimony. The longer the marriage, the longer the alimony. When you know what the default outcome looks like, you can negotiate from knowledge instead of fear. Now, if you're finding this helpful, please take a second and subscribe. I put out practical, no-nonsense divorce strategies every week, specifically for men who want to protect their rights and keep more of their money. Now, let's talk about child custody, because this is where many men feel the most vulnerable and where emotions understandably run the highest. I want to address a myth first. Many men believe the family court system automatically favors the mother. In reality, family courts are legally required to make decisions based on the best interest of the child, not the gender of the parent. In recent years, shared custody arrangements have become possible because the research clearly shows that children benefit from strong relationships with both parents. If you and your spouse can agree on a parenting plan, a written schedule that covers where the children live and how holidays are divided and how major decisions are made, a judge will typically approve that plan without question. The agreement doesn't have to be complicated. A clear 50-50 schedule or a reasonable variation works well for most families. What matters is that it's specific, in writing, and addresses the major situations before they become conflicts. Now, here's something many men don't realize. The amount of time your children spend with you directly affects your child support obligation. Child support in virtually every state is calculated by a formula based primarily on each parent's income and the custody split. More time with your children typically means a lower child support payment. And that's another reason why negotiating a fair custody arrangement isn't just an emotional decision, it's a financial one. Now, I want to cover the mistakes I see men make that turn a straightforward divorce into a long, expensive court battle. Mistake number 1, ignoring or delaying the paperwork. If you have been served and haven't responded, address that today. Missing your state's deadline can result in a default judgment. The court can grant your spouse everything she asked for without your input. Now, I put a link in the description below to my video on how to respond to a divorce filing. Please watch that video next. Mistake 2, posting on social media. Anything you post during a divorce can and will be used against you in negotiations. If you're venting online, stop immediately. Don't post anything you wouldn't want the judge reading in court. Mistake 3, moving or hiding assets. Removing money from joint accounts or attempting to conceal assets will destroy your credibility in negotiations and in court. Everything you do financially during a divorce is traceable. Act accordingly. Mistake number 4, letting emotion drive your decisions. Having been through a divorce myself, I understand the anger and frustration. Divorce is one of the most stressful events any man can go through. But every emotional decision adds weeks to your timeline and dollars to your cost. Mistake number 5, assuming you need an attorney just because your spouse has one. Having an attorney on the other side doesn't automatically mean you need one. What it means is that you need to be informed, aware of your options, and organized. Now here's the bottom line. Most divorces in this country can be handled without hiring an attorney. The process is procedural, the forms are free online, and the negotiation phase, when handled correctly, can be wrapped up in weeks rather than months. The men I work with typically spend a few $100s to get through the entire process. Compare that to the $15,000 to $30,000 that many men hand to attorneys, often without a significantly better outcome. You have more control over this process than you think. The key is understanding how it works and knowing where to focus your energy. The best thing you can do is get educated about the process so you can make informed decisions. If you want help navigating your specific situation, understanding your rights, structuring your settlement, or knowing where you stand on custody and support, you can find more information in the link in the description below. The earlier you are in the process, the more I can help you, and the more money I can save you. Now, if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I put out practical divorce strategies every week for men who want to get through this process quickly without court and without losing their shirt. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.